Well, hey there, pen fans. I'm Brian Goulet here from Goulet Pens, and I have another ink showdown for you. We've done a number of these already. We did black, blue black, red, sheening ink, and they've all been pretty popular. So I thought, why not try to sabotage that? And I'll pick one of the least popular colors, and I'll rank that next. I don't know, maybe something's broken in my brain, but I just thought it would be fun to do. I'm doing yellows and golds. So these are the least popular inks, probably because most of them aren't very readable when it comes to fountain pens. But you know, what I've done is I've gone through our site. I've, kind of curated, I can't really say best sellers because none of these sell particularly great. It's just not a great selling color range, but there are some really interesting colors, there's some interesting properties, and there's a nice little range there. So I'm gonna rank them very subjectively. And I'm gonna swab up each one. I'm gonna write with it with a glass pen and give you some idea of kind of what's going on. And then I don't know how I'm gonna rank them. I literally some of these I have very little experience with, some I have more, but I don't use yellow inks very much on a regular basis. So you're kind of gonna be along the ride, you're going to be along for the ride with me. There we go, English. I have 10 inks that I've selected. I've got some Tomoe River 52 gram white paper that I've cut up into little squares. I have a Rohrer and Klingner glass pen and a Kakimori dip nib that I'm gonna use to do the writing / swabbing. And I'm just gonna rank them as I go. And then I'll give a final ranking at the end. And that's how it's going to go. So this will be an adventure. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are going to enjoy it too. So without further ado, let's kick it off with the first ink. Pilot Iroshizuku Toro. All right, so we're going to kick it off here with an Iroshizuku ink, a relatively new Iroshizuku ink. In fact, so new we don't really have good stock of it, but I have a sample that I did up. This isn't even like official Goulet sample. This is what we got out of our initial shipment. I just wanted to be able to test and use the ink. As of when I was recording this, we had no samples and no bottles in stock. So this one sample is the only example of this ink that we have in our entire office, which, you could argue like, Brian, why are you promoting an ink that you don't even have? We're gonna have it. Okay, we're gonna have it. It's just new. We've had, a little bit of stock out getting it from Pilot, but that's okay. We know it's gonna be coming. So I'm gonna go ahead and write with my glass pen. Pilot. Toro. Okay. I feel like I can't comment too much until these dry, maybe a little bit better. But yeah, it's a nice looking, it's definitely more of like a sunflower, very much on the orange side. I feel like, honestly, the ranking for these inks is going to end up being like what's legible and what's not. That's going to be a lot of it. But no, seriously, I think most of the good yellow fountain pen inks, like the usable yellow fountain pen inks, are either going to lean heavy orange or lean heavy kind of brown. I don't really have a lot that lean heavy green. There were a few of those, but when it leans green, it looks so not yellow so quick. So I don't know. We'll see about that. I got my Kakimori here. I'm going to dip that in. See how this works. This is kind of acting like a cotton swab almost, except it's not cotton. So we're just going to go back and forth with it. Just try and get like a really big sample of the color. Now I'm not using this in a fountain pen, of course, and this glass dip pen is pretty wet, so it's probably not even the fairest comparison of how this ink would look overall. Like in a fountain pen, especially if you have like a finer nib. But it's okay. I know well enough, I've used these well enough to be able to judge in my own ranking. But just know that the finer the nib you go with these colors, the less readable it's going to be. And in particular, if you're using off-white paper, yellow just doesn't separate itself out enough from the off-white. So this color is decent though. This is nice. This is again like a nice kind of sunflower color. It's still drying, but I'm going to go ahead and rank this number 1. How about that? Next up, Diamine Golden Sands. Now, truth be told, I like this ink. This is probably the one I've used the most, maybe next to one other one that I'll mention. But this is a shimmering ink. And it's really more of a gold than a yellow, but, and you can tell down here at the bottom of the bottle, it's got some shimmer. I've had this sitting for a while, so a lot of the shimmer has settled out. But as I kind of rock it back and forth, you can just see how much of the shimmer is really floating around in there. This is a very, very, very shimmer heavy ink. So I'm going to have to give it a bunch of back and forth like this. I'm not going to shake it up so much that it has a lot of bubbles and stuff. That's always the challenge when doing this, but you can even see there, yeah, the ink already looks different. It's so swirly. It's got so much shimmer in there. It's awesome. I do like this ink a lot. I really don't know how I'm going to rank it compared to everything else because this really is more of like a gold. So if you're coming over from the calligraphy world with calligraphy like dip pens, you know, they're typically using thicker inks, maybe even like an acrylic-based or shellac-based ink. And with those, you can put heavy particulate in there. You can get really, really metallic-looking ink colors with those dip pens. That's really hard to do with fountain pen ink because if you put a lot of that metallic, you know, property in the ink, it's not going to flow through your fountain pen. So that's been the challenge. Anything like that, like I'm still shaking it and there's still gold sitting at the bottom. I'm gonna shake it all the way up because I want to get like the, you know, whatever strongest representation of this ink. Yeah, boy, you can just see how much of that's swirling around in there. It's kind of crazy looking. I think we got everything off the bottom. This is going to be wild looking. I don't know how I'm going to do. I haven't used this with a glass pen before. So let's crack it open. I find that a lot of Diamine Shimmertastic inks are some of the most shimmer heavy inks around. Private Reserve also has some pretty shimmer heavy ones. All right, so this is Diamine. Now I got to dip this kind of repeatedly here. I think when you're using shimmering inks, at least this is what I've noticed lately using the glass pen more with shimmering inks, is it tends to run off the glass pen very quickly. So you have to dip it a lot more than you do with other types of fountain pen ink, which is interesting. I hadn't really thought about that or observed that before, at least on this Rohrer and Klingner pen. Now, this is a pretty wet glass pen. I got some junk on the top there. I've had this bottle sitting around for a minute, and I have used this one before. This is my personal bottle. Yeah, so let me... Nope, I'm not going to set it aside. I'm going to shake it up again, though, because I'm willing to bet if I turn it upside down... Look at that. It's already settled out, a bunch of it. No, not nearly as much as it had settled out before, but that's how much shimmer is in here. It's like, it doesn't all stay in suspension pretty much ever, but that's okay. So this is obviously a very different looking yellow than Toro. So we're just gonna try and dip this thing in here quickly, get some of that shimmer, and then we're gonna swab it up. Oh boy, I can already see the shimmer in the wet ink. I'm gonna have to dip this several times because it's just not hanging on to the nib very much. I don't know if that's because of like whatever properties in the ink that they have to put to keep the shimmer in suspension or what, but it just makes it flow right off the dip pens. So we'll just kind of do that. Okay, that works. Okay, so the reason I wanted to use the shimmering ink, and I got another one coming up next, I wanted to use those more to the start of the video. That way they would have time to more fully dry by the time I get to the end and we get the more accurate representation. As far as where to put this next to Toro, this is really tough. I'm a little bit biased towards Golden Sands. I don't know if the shimmer is going to help it or hurt it because it's kind of like almost cheating a little bit. I'm a big fan of Golden Sands personally, so I'm going to put it ahead, but it could move around. Robert Oster. Shake and Shimmy Aussie Liquid Gold. All right, I got another shimmer here. Just like Golden Sands, this one is heavy. You can like see the layer of shimmer that's built up in the bottom of this bottle. So I'm going to shake this one around a bit. I think this is going to look pretty comparable to Golden Sands. I know it tends to be pretty popular for those who are looking for like a really gold ink. And honestly, that tends to be more the yellows that people like, or ones that have somewhat more extreme properties. Oh, I'm getting bubbles in this one. I think that's going to be unavoidable. because the bottle's just so tall, I can't help but to shake it back and forth like crazy. Okay. So there we go. Now I got tons of bubbles in there, and you can just, well, you can see the bubbles at the top, but there's tons of swirls going on inside of here. Can you see any of that? Yeah, like down here at the bottom, how much that's swirling. It's crazy. This is what Golden Sand was doing. And I think we're gonna get the same thing here with Aussie Liquid Gold. So let's crack this open. Already, I bet some of the shimmer is gonna be settling out, but there's still plenty to grab at the top. All right, so this is Robert Oster. I'm not gonna write shake and shimmy. Aussie Liquid Gold. There we go. All right, that's it for the glass pen. It's written pretty wet. Again, it flows off pretty quickly, just like Golden Sands does. Golden Sands is looking mighty fine over there. You can't even really see the ink. All you see is shimmer, which I think is part of the goal. So I'll put the cap back on. I will shake up the shake and shimmy. Again, look at that. Look at how much settled out already. It's crazy. So yeah, we'll get that swirling around again. I feel like this too, because the bottle is so tall. Like, I don't know, does that make the ink settle? Does that make the shimmer settle out a little more? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, it's looking pretty close. It looks maybe a little bit brighter than Golden Sands, at least as it first goes down. We're going to see how this turns out when it dries, of course. I got to dip it like several times because it just wants to get off the nib so quickly. Okay. There we go. All right. I'm going to give that a hot second to dry because I don't even know where to rank. I don't even know where to put this thing yet because I went for some of the weird ones first. I feel like if I put Golden Sands near the top, I should put Aussie Liquid Gold there as well. Though Toro is a really nice color. I don't know. Don't take it too seriously until I get closer to the end because I feel like these are going to be somewhat all over the place. So there we go. Aussie Liquid Gold. Boom, boom, boom. On to the next one. All right, this next one is near and dear to my heart. We literally have carried this ink from the beginning of Goulet pens back in November 2009. This was Jacques Herbin. This was in our first order that we ever placed. And it is Jacques Herbin Ambre de Birmanie, or as we lovingly call it back from our garage Goulet pens days, Ambre de Ambre de, because we didn't know how to pronounce the French. Great ink, very, it's like all natural. I don't even think they use biocides in these inks. So I know this ink because I've used it for 15 plus years. And it's going to be more of like a kind of a gold or more like an amber color. Yeah, this is like writing way drier than the shimmer inks. I think that the shimmer in the ink like weighs it down almost, causes it to flow off the dip nibs more. I don't think they necessarily write much wetter in a fountain pen, but in the dip pens, I feel like it writes very different. Let's see if I can do this from memory. Ambre de Birmanie. There we go. Ambre de Birmanie. So that's that. And I guess, yeah, it would make sense that it would be an amber color, right? Because it's called amber. So again, being an amber color, it's going to lean a little more kind of on the orange and kind of on the brownish side. Very different look than Golden Sands and Aussie Liquid Gold, but that's okay. We're going for a range of yellows here because there really isn't like one yellow that just dominates the fountain pen world. It is kind of a variety depending on what people want. I feel like when you want a yellow ink, it's because you're kind of going for something specific. I really don't know many people who like yellow is just their go-to. I use yellow all the time. It's more like I'm going for a certain look or I'm using it for some art or something. That tends to be what yellow ink is used for a little bit, which is why it's not as much of a hot seller. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think that's why the shimmering inks tend to do a little better too with these yellows, because you know, they do stand out a little more. They are, you know, more unique and different. And people just like gold. So there you go, Ambre de Birmanie. And honestly, the nice thing is if you use, you know, the dip pen, it's got a little pen rest in there, or a glass pen, you know, so that's always a unique thing on the glass pen. There we go. So that's a cool feature on these, 30 ml Diamine bottle or Jacques bottles. So yeah. All right. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard to rank. Where does that fall? I kind of like it more than Toro. Toro is looking real orange, like almost could be classified as an orange. So I'm going to put it there for now. We're still waiting on some of these to dry, and then we'll move to the next one. So we've got Sailor Manyo Yamabuki. You know, the Manyo inks are really nice. They tend to be, you know, very dynamic in their colors. I have not used this one yet, so this will be a new experience for me. And it is kind of cool. One thing I like about the yellows in the bottle, you know, when you have a really light color ink, that's when you actually can like see the color of the ink. Typically, if you have a dark ink, you know, it's like, here's a Emerald of Chivor. It just looks dark. You know, Noodler's black, obviously dark. So typically most fountain pen inks are just going to look kind of dark black. But when you get into like oranges and yellows and even some lighter reds, you get to see a lot of the color, and it looks really satisfying in your pen because you can really get to that demonstrator aspect of it. But anyway, let's see what we got here. Manyo Yamabuki. Let's give that a little dip. Looks very orange. Okay. Not super gushing wet. It's more like the Jacques Herbin was. Actually works really well with the glass pen here. That's a good sign. Typically, I usually would anticipate Sailor to be a pretty well-behaved ink. And then we'll give it the old 1-2 here. Oh, wow, that is very orange. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Ooh. This is going to be more of like a direct comparison with Toro. Okay, there we go. Eventually got there. Okay. Yeah, this looks really similar to Toro. Really similar. Oh gosh, I don't know how to rank these orangey yellows, because I was thinking more like yellows and golds. But truth be told, since I don't have a lot of personal experience with each of these inks, I was just kind of going off the swabs that we've done and looking at them mostly digitally. So it was hard to tell exactly what color range they would be in. Boy, is that orange. Holy cow. Okay. I do really like it, but it's really orange. I'm going to put it fifth, you know, just because if you told me that you were making an orange video and you showed this, I'd be like, okay, that tracks. I wouldn't be like, no, that's wrong. That's yellow. It looks very orange. It's more like construction yellow, maybe, but it's very orange. Anyway, it looks nice though. Let's try the next one. All right, we got a Rohrer and Klingner one now. This is Helianthus, which is among the more popular yellows out there. Rohrer and Klingner has a pretty decent line. A lot of good colors, not as extensive as certainly Sailor, or Robert Oster, or Diamine, or Jacques Herbin for that matter. Like a lot of these brands have just a ton of inks. Rohrer and Klingner is probably more comparable in number of ink colors to Iroshizuku. All right, now here's my test. Can I remember how to spell Rohrer and Klingner? Rohrer and Klingner. Nailed it. Can I spell Helianthus? Cool. I did it. Yay. It's kind of sad that I feel proud about that, because it's like my job, right? I should do that, but that's okay. Nice looking color. Definitely has a bit of an orange tone to it. Not as much as Yamabuki though. That thing is way orange. Oh, this is a really nice color. This looks like a little less orange than Toro. I'll be honest though, as I'm writing with all these, I think I was anticipating that in the glass pen sample that they would be like borderline unreadable because they'd be so light. But I think I've chosen well with these comparisons because, you know, well, honestly, the yellows that are so light that you can't really read them, we don't sell them because we've tried carrying like, we used to carry like absolutely everything from every brand. We no longer do that because literally I think it was like some of the lighter pinks and some of the yellows and whatnot never sold, just never sold. And we were like, we don't want ink just sitting around forever. And we especially don't want ink sitting around if no one wants it. So this is a nice color though. This to me screams much more yellow than, kind of than all of these. Honestly, I don't know. What do you think? Like this looks really gold, but this is like a totally different vibe. I think it's tough. I'm inclined to jump this to the top. I don't know. That's just my gut. I'm going to stick with that. We'll go through some more and we'll see where that lands. I don't know. Yell at me if I'm wrong. All right, next up, I have Diamine Sunshine Yellow. This is one that we've had a few stock issues on. We have a bunch of samples of this, but I'm trying to get some more bottles of it. So hopefully it's not too amazing so that you don't get mad if we don't have it. That's why I'm using a sample of it because I don't have any bottles right now. All right, but I think this is going to be a good color though. Okay. This one is going to kind of fall, I think, around where Helianthus is. And then I got some crazy ones towards the end here. You just wait. You just wait. I think I'm going to end up with way more of a range than I expected with yellows, which is honestly, it's kind of fun, right? Like, it's neat to see how different certain inks can look. Sunshine Yellow. Ooh, I like this. Oh, it's just such a happy yellow. Definitely has some orange to it. Writes really well with a glass pen, though. Some of them are like, kind of want to gush a little bit. It's interesting, like even the Rohrer and Klingner Helianthus wrote a bit wetter off the glass pen, but this one felt very controlled, kind of like the Jacques Herbin did. This is interesting. Like the Sailor one wrote a little drier than the Iroshizuku. I don't know how that translates to how it's going to flow in a fountain pen. Probably not that much because it's pretty different writing experience, but I don't know. Maybe that'll be a interesting thing for me to pay attention to in the future. Okay, this is a really nice color. Boy, is this similar to Helianthus. Boy, is it similar. Oh my gosh. Let's see here. Now it's not completely dry, but we're just going to go for a preliminary pass. I don't know. These gold ones are pretty cool. I may change up this whole thing towards the end. That looks so similar, right? Like the Helianthus and Sunshine Yellow. I bet if you like did a blind test, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Sunshine Yellow looks to me like it's shading a bit more. Maybe Helianthus is a tad darker, but that's because it wrote wetter on the glass pen. I think they're pretty comparable, but I don't know. I'm digging the shading on the Sunshine Yellow. So that is actually going to take it for me. So I'm going to move some of these down. I don't know how these are going to end up. It's always hard to move these things as we get more to it. Okay, so I'm going to put Sunshine Yellow at the top. And Helianthus is going to go right there. I feel okay about that. Got 3 left. All right, next one. This is Noodler's Yellow, which is a really solid true yellow, you know, and it's interesting when you look at, you know, Helianthus, you can tell in the bottle it's like a little bit lighter, so maybe this will be a little more orange. I'm not sure. When you look at the Yamabuki, you know, you can see like in the bottle there's a kind of a similar tone to these. Not that that means everything. You know, the Iroshizuku Toro versus some of these other colors, you know, like the Robert Oster, right? Like that looks very different. So I don't know. You get some indication on these yellows that you wouldn't maybe with other colors of ink. Most of the time in the bottle, you can't really tell what's going on, but you get a little hint of it here. Typically in Noodler's fashion, they fill the bottles. Fill the bottles. All right. So yellow. I know this is like, you know, when people try to mix up their own like CMYK colors, Noodler's yellow is kind of a go-to for this. Ooh, okay. So this, interesting. The ink looked a little bit darker than Helianthus, but when it goes down on the page, it looks truly yellow. Like it does not look orange. It doesn't look gold. It doesn't look brown. This is a pretty true to form yellow, I feel like. Let's swab it up and see how it looks then. I haven't used this ink a lot, but I did know that it had a reputation for being a pretty true yellow. And it sure looks like that's what it's shaping up to be. Maybe the truest yellow in the bunch, but we got 2 more inks to go. And the last 2 are going to be pretty interesting. Okay. Wow, that's a really nice yellow. Would I use that in a pen though? You know, I feel like this would be really good for ink mixing. Could be good for some artwork, though it's not permanent. But it's going to be on the lighter end of all these. Like when you actually put it in a pen, if you put it in like a fine or an extra fine nib, would you really be able to read it? I feel like you might start to have a challenge with that. I think I might have to knock it a little bit just for that. I want to rank it high because it is very much like a true yellow color, as opposed to like these really orangey looking ones. You know, here you've got, these are like yellow orange. These are more like a sunflower. These are like gold and amber brown. Ambre de Birmanie almost looks brown, honestly. I don't even know if technically that should be a yellow, but here it is. Noodler's yellow. So I'm really torn. I think it has to go above the oranges and has to go above Ambre de Birmanie. Does it go above the golds? I don't think I can rank it above these ones because it's going to be harder to read. Now, these are going to be kind of hard to read too, but the yellow, does Noodler's yellow rank above Golden Sands and Aussie Liquid Gold? That is a really tough one. I don't know. My gut is telling me no. My gut's very torn, to be honest with you. I'm going to put it below the golds. And then I'm going to sit on that and see how I feel. But we got 2 more to go and they're going to be crazy. Okay. This ink looks like it's radioactive or something. This is Noodler's Firefly. This is a pretty notable ink. It's very unique for what it is. For one, you know, it looks almost supernatural here. But it is a highlighter ink. So it says, you know, margin notes, highlighting, contrast writing. And it's, you know, it's very, very bright. So if you are wanting to use a refillable highlighter, this is a great ink for that. Great ink. I put it on this list because it's so different from everything else. Using it in a fountain pen is absolutely worthless. You can't read it at all. So it's not going to rank high for that. So it may not get high in the rankings, but it's interesting and it looks crazy. So I wanted you to see it. But let's go ahead and write with it. Oh, so bright. That's crazy looking. It's like neon. All right, how's this going to do in a glass pen? Are you going to be able to read this at all? That's really what I'm thinking. Okay. Whoa. Oops, I didn't spell Noodler's right. Pfft. Let me get another swatch. It's the first one I've messed up on camera. Well, first one I've messed up and thrown out. All right. Noodler's. That definitely looks like... See, then I just messed it up again. But I fixed it. Wow. Noodler's Firefly. That certainly looks like a highlighter, doesn't it? You're not going to be able to read this at all. It's crazy looking. But it would be the best highlighter ink out of the bunch, which is kind of what it's made for. Let's go ahead and swath this. That's not a word. I think like you have like a broad swath of something, but you don't swath it. It's not a verb, right? Ooh, wow, it's loud. It does look really cool though. I mean, unusable as a daily writing ink. It's really made for highlighting. It's definitely got more of a green tone to it than any of these other colors, which is kind of cool. Because honestly, that's kind of an underrepresented category a little bit. I kind of mentioned that at the beginning, that anything that leans heavy green, I feel like gets away from yellow real quick because the green just tends to dominate. You could argue that orange does too, but here we are. Noodler's Firefly. Where the heck should this thing rank? I mean, you got uniqueness going for it, but it's pretty useless in terms of the overall color. So I think I'm gonna have to rank it last, but with a big old asterisk. And then we got one more to go. All right, so we're keeping it going with the unconventionals. This is Atramentis Document Yellow. Now this has, I don't know what kind of magic goes into this thing. I don't know if it's pigmented. I would guess that maybe, but the ink is like opaque and it doesn't really have stuff that settles out that I can tell. So I don't know what this is. I don't know what makes these document inks what they are. But to me, it's just wild how different some of these yellows can look from each other. Let's just pull, like your Shimmertastic and, like maybe other inks would be this drastically different from each other in bottles, but, they're just dark, so you can't really tell. But these look wild. Isn't that crazy? Anyway. Okay, Document Yellow. I have a feeling this is also going to be maybe not the best for readability, kind of like Firefly. And this is kind of special purpose. This is basically more of an artist ink. So if you want to use yellow and you want permanent qualities to it, well, this is your ticket. Now I'm curious, if you watched the blue-black, that document ink, that ink dried so fast. I'm curious if this will dry fast as well. Document Yellow. Boy, it wants to hang on to that glass nib, let me tell you. Got to swirl it around quite a little bit. I don't know. It's a decent looking yellow. I at least if I'm going off what's in the bottle, it looks like it's going to be pretty much of a conventional true yellow. No, but as it's drying, it's lightening up. That's not a good sign for its overall readability. Oh yeah, that's a nice kind of pure yellow as it goes down at least. Question is, will it darken as it dries or lighten as it dries? I genuinely don't know. It is not drying as fast as the blue-black did. Not anywhere close. If you saw the last video I did ranking the blue-blacks, holy moly. It was like dried here before I got to the bottom of the swab. It was crazy how fast that dried. But the trade-off of that is it makes the color look super flat and uninteresting. But on this one, it's still wet, like way up here. So this is not as quick drying as the blue-black was. So maybe the blue-black was a fluke. Oh, this is crazy looking. It doesn't even look like fountain pen ink. It's so like opaque. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside. It's like not dry. It's maybe on the longer end of all of these in terms of how quickly it's drying. I mean, the permanence of it, I guess, is useful in some ways, but I would never write with a yellow ink in my fountain pen for its permanent qualities. Because I would think you would want like a darker ink, because if you're starting with a really light color, I feel like it doesn't have that far to go to become lighter and unreadable. So I don't think I'm going to rank it super high for that. It's going to go above Firefly for sure. Should it go above the Sailor and the Pilot though? Because they are definitely more of an orange. This is more of a pure yellow, but then I didn't set like pureness of yellow as a parameter for all this. It's just weirding me out how opaque that is. I'm going to give it a minute to dry up more because I can't decide. I'm going to contemplate this. I'm going to think about this, and then I'll do my final rankings. So hang tight. All right, so this has had a chance to dry now. I literally been sitting here thinking about how I'm going to rank these because they are very different from each other. I wasn't super clear in my own mind even how I was going to rank them, but I think I'm going to go in terms of what's going to behave well, what's going to, work well in most fountain pens in terms of like nib sizes. So it's, and then just like, I don't know, completely just how my gut instinct about it. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. Firefly is really cool, and it's a great highlighter, but it is just useless in a fountain pen. So I'm gonna leave that at the bottom, even though it's a cool color. It stands out already from the rest. Ambre de Birmanie, as much as it's near and dear to my heart and it's nostalgic, it just doesn't even look yellow compared to the rest of these. And that's on me. I think I thought I remembered it being more yellow than it was. I haven't used it in a minute, but it's really not that yellow. It's really more of a brown. It could probably fall into more like a sepia range. So honestly, that's a little bit on me. I probably shouldn't have chosen this color, but if you consider it yellow, it's on the yellow filters on our site. So that's something. But anyway, so that's there. It is a nice color though. There's lots of shading and stuff like that. And it behaves really well. So that's got that going for it, but you wouldn't look at that and be like, wow, look at that yellow. All right, so this is where I'm torn. So I got the document yellow. It's very light though. It's very light. It's permanent, which is cool, but it still hasn't dried. I mean, it's been a few minutes here and it's still not dry. Now, granted, this is Tomoe River. Like it's paper that doesn't dry quickly, but I'm going to put it low. Even though it's like a nice, pure, true yellow, it's just not going to be readable in a pen very much. If you're using it for artwork, sure, it's going to be great. And that's really what it's for. But not that many people are using it for that purpose. So I'm okay ranking it there. And again, none of these are bad. I just don't think it's like the most recommendable yellow. Now, this is where it gets interesting, is these up here. Noodler's yellow has dried out really nice. It actually darkened up just a skosh. And it looks really nice. I like the color tone of it. It's kind of in between these oranges. Not in between. It's in between like the yellows, like the document yellow and like Helianthus and sunshine yellow. But I think it's going to, unless you're using it in a really wet pen, I feel like it's going to be pretty light. So I think I have a hard time putting it below these really orange ones though. I think I'm going to put it above the orange ones because it is yellows. So Yamabuki and Toro, I think I'm okay where these are right now. Yamabuki is just so orange. Toro is really nice color, but not super yellow. Now, okay, this top row, what do I do with these? How do I compare orangey yellows to gold, right? Now, between Golden Sands and Aussie Liquid Gold, part of my logic here is they look super similar to each other. But if I'm writing with a finer nib, Golden Sands is a little bit darker and seems like it's not quite as shiny with the gold shimmer, maybe just by a skosh, but I feel like that's going to be a little more readable. So I'm going to rank that one a little higher. Maybe I'm biased, but I do like that. Does Noodler's yellow go above these? I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave Noodler's yellow where it is. I think I'm gonna leave these two in order that they are here. Sunshine yellow should outrank Helianthus, but the question is how do I rank all these ones? I think I'm pretty settled on Sunshine yellow taking the top spot for me. It just looks really good. The shading is great. It behaves really well. I just really like the color. It's readable. I don't know what to do with Helianthus with these gold ones. I'm inclined to like switch these two. I don't know if that's weird though. You know what? I'm just going to do that because I've thought about it 17 times. I just didn't feel like I could break these up, but you know what? I'm making the rules here anyway. What do y'all think? Sunshine yellow, then Golden Sands, then Helianthus, Aussie Liquid Gold, Noodler's yellow, Toro, Yamabuki, Document yellow, Ambre de Birmanie, and Firefly. I think I can stand behind this. Now, maybe you were hate watching this whole thing and you just want to dump on my choices and, you know, critique it. That's totally fine. You know, yellows are so tough because they're just all over the place. But yeah, I don't know. I feel good about that. Sunshine Yellow looks the best to me. I think overall, I think it's going to be very usable, very readable. Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm going to go with. I'm locking that in. That is my final answer. And there you go. There's golds and yellow. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what other colors that you think I should do, because honestly, there are more popular colors I haven't done yet that I probably could have done first. I feel like the yellows are one that I should have saved until I like completely ran out of colors. But I don't know. Something about it was just appealing to me because I don't know. It was just appealing to me. So that's what I did. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. You can check out samples and bottles of this at gouletpens.com. And yeah, until the next one, I guess. Leave me some comments, subscribe to our channel and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, and right on.